town had no name worth remembering. It sat in a valley shaped like a wound, its streets crooked as broken ribs, its river thick with iron and rot. The people who stayed did so out of habit, not hope. Most of the mills had closed by the late 60s, the mines before that. Everything ruined. By the time the factory came, no one asked questions. It appeared overnight, or so they said. A long, rectangular mass of brick and steel, its windows blind with soot. No sign was ever hung, no ribbon cut. One morning, the air simply smelled of sugar. It drifted through the streets, golden and heavy, mixing with the dust. Children woke craving sweets they had never tasted. Dogs howled at nothing. The river turned the color of tea. At first, the townspeople were grateful. Men with hollow eyes and women with raw hands were offered work. No interviews, no background checks. Just a signature on a form so faintly printed that the paper seemed almost blank. A bus came twice a day and took the new hires beyond the hill, where the road disappeared into fog. When they came home, those who did, they spoke little. The pay was good, the hours were long. The air inside, they said, was thick enough to chew. But the factory gave them money, and the money gave them food. And so the town began to live again. At night, when the wind was right, you could hear the hum. It wasn't like machinery. It was lower, slower, almost human. A chorus of deep throats singing in unison, never pausing for breath. People stopped asking questions. Then came the candy. The first shipment arrived in the general store the week before Halloween. Small boxes, plain white, stacked 3 high on the counter. The owner, a man named Blaine, said they'd been dropped off without a bill of sale. The wrappers were a pale, pearlescent film that shimmered faintly in the lamplight. There was no name, no slogan. Only a tiny embossed mouth, smiling, biting its own tongue. Blaine sold out by evening. The candy was soft, almost warm to the touch. The flavor was impossible to describe, though everyone tried. Honey, some said. Almond, others. Some swore it tasted like memories, like the air on the first day of summer, or the smell of a mother's kitchen. But every description faded as soon as it was spoken. People wanted more. By the second week, the shipments doubled. The buses ran at all hours. A second whistle joined the first, lower, slower, like a sigh drawn through a throat full of syrup. The townspeople began to change. A woman named Hester stopped leaving her house. Her husband found her one morning standing in the kitchen, chewing softly on her own hair, saying it tasted right. A boy named Eli was seen digging in his backyard long after midnight, burying handfuls of candy in the dirt. When asked why, he said he was feeding them. And always, that smell. Sugar. Smoke. And beneath it, something metallic, like the breath of a furnace. One night, a freight truck rolled down Main Street. Its lights were off, its windows black. It stopped in front of the church. The driver never stepped out. The back door opened on its own, releasing a puff of steam so hot it cracked the pavement. Inside were boxes, hundreds of them, each marked with that same smiling mouth. By dawn, the boxes were gone. The factory's whistle blew again, long and low. The windows pulsed with orange light, as though something enormous were breathing within. That morning, people noticed the river had changed. The fish were gone, replaced by long ribbons of something translucent drifting just below the surface. The water tasted faintly of sugar. And from that day on, the town never stopped smelling sweet. So, they came from every direction. Farmhands, drifters, out-of-work miners, drawn to the glow on the hill like insects to a lantern. The buses had no markings, no numbers, just wide doors that sighed open, swallowing the hopeful one by one. No one ever saw them return the same. Those who spoke of it did so quietly, like confessing a sickness. They said the air inside the factory was thick, clinging to your lungs like syrup, that your skin felt sticky even after scrubbing, that after the first shift, food tasted like ash and water like blood. And yet, there was always the hunger. Every worker spoke of it differently, a craving that began behind the teeth, deep in the jaw. It grew as the days passed. Some chewed sugar cubes until their gums bled. Others gnawed candle wax in the dark. One man bit his own fingers down to the bone before anyone noticed. The pay was perfect. Each envelope carried crisp bills that smelled faintly of caramel. Families stopped asking questions when rent was met, and tables filled again with food. The town began to fatten. One by one, though, the workers disappeared. Their names were struck from the rosters, their houses sold to newcomers. When their families asked the factory for answers, they received the same note. Typed neatly, unsigned. Employee transferred to internal production. Inside, the manager's office overlooked everything. From his window he could see the vast floor shifting under its orange lights, the great vats bubbling, the steam rising in curtains. He kept a ledger on his desk filled with names. Each line ended in the same word. Mixed. He never went down there himself. He didn't have to. The factory ran beautifully without him. It breathed. It fed. The workers learned to ignore the noises, the screams that came from the pipes, the faint laughter that bubbled up with the steam. Once, during a night shift, someone dropped a wrench into a vat. It sank with a sound like a gasp. When the mixture spilled over, it came up thick and red, crawling like something alive. A supervisor in a clean white coat ordered them to keep stirring. "Every piece must be sweet," he said. "No waste." That phrase hung in the air long after he left. Weeks later, one of the new hires found something in the cooling troughs. Not candy, not exactly. It was soft, pale, warm to the touch. It had fingernails. He tried to show his foreman, but by morning the piece was gone, and so was he. The others didn't speak of it, though every night when the whistle blew, they whispered prayers to the machinery. Some began to thank it. They said the factory wasn't evil, only hungry, that it needed people the way people needed food. Outside, the town glowed orange beneath the smoke. Children slept with candy on their tongues. Old women woke in the night and swore they heard singing from the hill. Low voices, hundreds of them, humming through the fog. And through it all, the air stayed thick with sweetness. When the first snow fell, it melted before touching the ground, leaving behind a film of sugar that coated every window. No one saw the buses anymore, though sometimes the tracks appeared in the road, wet and glistening, leading up toward the factory and stopping at the gate. It was said that, once a year, on Halloween night, the manager himself walked the line. The lights would dim, the steam would slow, and from somewhere deep within, a voice would whisper the old slogan, "Sweetness that never dies." The next morning, the town would wake to find new candy in their stores, fresh, perfect, unmarked. And for a moment, when they bit down and closed their eyes, they swore they could taste something beneath the sugar, something warm, human, and still alive. By the time the second winter came, the town was different. No one noticed it at first. The change was too slow, too soft. People smiled too much. Their teeth had gone a little yellow, but their lips were always dusted with sugar. They spoke of the new candy with affection, almost reverence. Children hoarded it under their beds. The old prayed with pieces tucked in their pockets. The candy was no longer sold. It appeared. Boxes arrived on doorsteps, stacked neatly, faintly warm. Every wrapper bore that same symbol, a smiling mouth, biting its own tongue. When the mayor tried to question the source, he fell ill. His tongue swelled until he couldn't speak, his mouth leaking a thin, syrupy foam. He died smiling. They buried him with one of the candies in his hand, as though it were a blessing. Soon, the town began to change in other ways. The snow never lasted more than an hour before melting into sweet puddles that stuck to shoes. Dogs stopped barking at night, and the river made a noise like a slow exhale. People stopped leaving. Those who tried turned back before the bridge. Some said the fog was too thick. Others said they'd heard voices, soft, pleading voices calling their names. In March, a delivery driver from a neighboring county disappeared on the road outside town. His truck was found idling by the ditch, headlights still on. Inside were hundreds of boxes, sealed and stamped with the candy's emblem. The driver's logbook ended mid-sentence. The final word was sweet. The authorities came once. 3 men from the capital, clean suits, polished shoes. They visited the factory gates at dusk and were never seen again. After that, the government stopped asking questions. People from outside stopped coming altogether. And still, the candy arrived. There were nights when the sky over the hill turned orange again, the clouds pulsing faintly like the skin of a sleeping beast. The air smelled of sugar and heat. The children dreamed of red rivers and woke with sticky mouths. On Halloween of the third year, the candy changed. It was smaller, bite-sized, shaped like hearts. Some swore they could feel them beating between their fingers. Others claimed the sweets whispered when held too close. A boy named Owen bit one in half and screamed until his throat tore. He said he'd tasted something alive. He said it whispered his name as it melted. The doctor told his parents it was hysteria. They fed him another piece to calm him. He stopped screaming after that. The town was happy again. Everyone smiled. Everyone was sweet. Up on the hill, the factory roared. Inside, the manager watched from his office, as he always had. The glass was clouded now, the air full of syrup. He didn't need to see. He could feel the production in his bones, the steady rhythm of the vats, the pulse of the pipes, the heartbeat of something vast and content beneath his feet. He knew the quotas were met. He knew the sweetness would spread. And when he looked at the ledgers, at the lists of names that glowed faintly through the paper, he could almost remember their faces, their laughter, their terror, their pleading hands. He smiled and whispered to the air, "Every piece must be sweet." The walls trembled in response. He had no name that mattered anymore. The manager, they called him. The man upstairs. The one who kept the machines running long after the world outside had stopped caring about machines or about men. No one knew where he came from. The oldest workers swore he'd always been there, standing at the edge of the floor, immaculate white apron spotless amid the steam and gore. His hair never changed, his face never aged. The air around him always smelled faintly of caramel. Some said he built the factory. Others said he found it. But the truth was older, deeper, buried beneath layers of brick and rust. Before the mines closed, before the town even had a name, there was a sinkhole in the valley. They called it the Mouth, a deep black pit where animals vanished and echoes never returned. No one knew how deep it went. When the miners broke through its edge, they heard sounds that weren't echoes, soft, humming like something breathing beneath the rock. They sealed it, built over it, pretended it wasn't there. The factory came years later, right on top of the scar. He'd been the first to walk its floor. He remembered that much. The pipes were already in place, the vats already warm. The walls trembled when he touched them, like skin responding to heat. And when he found the office, his office, there was a desk, a ledger, and a single line of text already written inside. Sweetness sustained through offering. No signature. The first offering was easy. A vagrant, someone who wouldn't be missed. The syrup accepted him eagerly. It hissed and frothed like something thirsty. The air smelled divine. After that, the factory took care of itself. Now, every October, he repeated the ritual. The buses came, the names were signed, and the vats began to breathe. The candy would ship before the first frost, and the town would thrive again. Always the same, always perfect. In time, he began to hear it more clearly. The voice from beneath the foundation. It spoke through the vibrations of the floor, the hum of the motors, the rhythm of the belts. At first, just single words. Feed. Blend. More. Then entire sentences, warm and soothing. You keep them sweet, and I keep you whole. He didn't remember when he'd last eaten, or slept. He didn't need to. When the workers prayed, they prayed to the factory, but they didn't know they were really praying to what was underneath it, to the thing that had been waiting below since before there was a town or a river or men to dig into its hunger. He knew, though. He'd seen its shape once, reflected in the syrup during a blackout. Eyes like molten glass, ribs like girders, and a mouth that stretched beneath everything, touching the foundations of the world. It was not a god. Gods were merciful. This was appetite given form, and he was its tongue. At night, when the candy cooled and the machinery slept, he would walk the aisles with his ledger in hand, whispering the names of those who had been mixed. The walls seemed to breathe slower when he spoke. The air softened. It was the only time the factory ever felt calm. He liked to think of it as prayer. Outside, the town slept in sugared silence. People dreamed of soft hands and warm mouths whispering their names. And above them all, the factory glowed faintly through the fog, an orange heartbeat pulsing beneath the clouds. He looked down at the newest entry on the ledger, a detective's name. Aaron Rowe. He smiled. The police called it an environmental hazard. The fire department called it condemned. The townspeople didn't call it anything. They simply stopped looking in that direction. And yet the sweet factory still breathed. Detective Aaron Rowe arrived on a gray October morning, the kind that never quite becomes day. He had grown up 3 counties over. As a child, he'd smelled the strange sweetness on the wind and wondered where it came from. Now, 20 years after the last shipment, his superiors wanted closure. They wanted photographs, soil samples, a clean report to file away under industrial contamination. The factory met him with silence. No birds, no insects, only the slow crackle of cooling metal. The smokestacks leaned like broken candles. Each window was fogged from the inside, as if the building still exhaled. Rowe's flashlight beam caught the slogan painted above the gate in half-rotted letters. Sweetness that never dies. He felt a taste on his tongue then. Something faintly sweet, like blood dissolved in tea. Inside, the air shimmered. Dust fell like sugar. His boots left prints that filled slowly behind him, as though the floor disliked being stepped on. He passed work tables crusted with crystallized residue, molds shaped like human limbs, and a conveyor belt that ticked forward once, all by itself, before going still. In the control room he found the old ledgers, pages fused together with syrup. Hundreds of names written in a perfect, identical hand. No ink, just impressions pressed so deeply the paper had become translucent. Near the bottom, one entry glowed faintly when his light touched it. Aaron Rowe, mixed. The radio on his belt hissed. Voices leaked through, female, childlike, dozens overlapping, whispering his name the way a tongue tastes a wound. He stumbled back into the corridor, calling out, but the echo was wrong. It came not from ahead or behind, but from below, as if the factory's foundations were hollow. The floor under his boots flexed once, like something inhaling. He found the stairs leading down. The railing was warm. The deeper he went, the sweeter the air became, until it clung to his lungs like syrup. At the bottom, he stepped into a chamber that pulsed with dull light. Vats bigger than houses, filled to the brim with thick, slow-moving sugar, the color of rust. Shapes drifted inside, pale, half-formed, human only in suggestion. When he leaned closer, the surface stirred. A face rose from beneath, eyes open, mouth working soundlessly. Its features were soft, melting, but familiar. It was his own. The walls began to whisper. Not mechanical, not human. Something older, deeper, vibrating through every pipe. Feed. Rowe turned to run. The stairs were gone. Only the warm slope of flesh remained, folding upward like a closing throat. He fired his gun. The bullets vanished into the syrup with muffled pops. "You keep them sweet," the voice said, now inside his skull. "And I keep you whole." Above, in the manager's office, dust lifted from the chair. The ledger on the desk opened to a fresh page. A new line wrote itself in glistening ink. Investigation closed. Production resumed. Then the lights came on. By morning, trucks rolled once more down the highway, unmarked and driverless. Their cargo was warm, humming softly. In distant cities, new candies appeared on store shelves. Pale wrappers, faint shimmer, taste impossible to name. Children loved them. Adults dreamed strange dreams. And somewhere, beneath the ruins of the valley, a colossal tongue stirred and whispered to the turning world above. Sweetness that never dies.